All right, cool. We're live finally. Sorry about that, folks. I kept trying to go live, and then it kept telling me I can't go live right now. So, all right, we're good to go now. All right, so let's scroll down, see what the first question is. If you got your question, below the video. If you're on a mobile device, or if you're on like your laptop or a desktop computer, something like that, it'll probably be on the right hand side of the screen where you'll be able to see where you can post your questions. All right, so John Z says, any chance Clay would do a face forward putting video? Been doing it for years. Binocular view, face balance putter, 80-degree lie angle, belly length. Will help anybody who hands are electric. Like to see Clay's technique. As far as I know, Clay hasn't played around with any of that, but I would say the extent of the putting videos that you're going to see from us are already on the website. It's not likely that we will do any putting videos. People just don't watch them for the most part. So we pretty much covered everything there is other than your face forward stance video. But then again, there aren't a lot of people that would probably watch that. So we try to cover things that are going to be things that a lot of people are going to be interested in and wanting to watch. So pretty much those are going to be for the most part, distance with the driver, hitting the driver straight, distance with irons, accuracy and consistency with irons, some chipping. Don't seem to be very interested in none. Pretty much all the putting videos that we do, as far as the vault videos are concerned, that stance. But as far as I know, it's not something Clay has played around with. So Robert H says the SC200 used to be highly. So let me clarify. I still recommend the SC Caddy 2. They have a new model out now that is the Swing Caddy 200 or the SC200 Plus. I don't recommend that one because they messed around with the programming of it and it made it inaccurate. The other one was accurate as far as the club head speed and the ball speed was accurate. The only time there's a couple things, and this is with any launch monitor. It's not just SC200. I'm not picking on the SC200, but when it got hot. So if you imagine if you left your phone out in the sun and just let it bake, that's kind of what's happening with the SC200. Sometimes it would just bake in that Florida sun, and it would give some funny numbers when it got really hot. So we used to use them in clinics, and then because we're out there and it's hot, the sun's beating out there, and we're out there for a couple hours, and it starts to act funny. And that the Flight Scope does that, when it gets really hot. Like it'll power down when it gets hot. An iPad will power down when it gets too hot. So it doesn't have a function in it that just makes it power down when it gets too hot. It just keeps working, and it just gives you funny numbers. So that's part of it. And then range balls, it doesn't matter which device you use, no matter what device you use, whether you're using a $25,000 TrackMan, it's not going to be very accurate with range balls. So especially if it's limited flight. Now you can try to mess with the set. I don't have a lot of experience with that, but I know that that's something that you can do. So something to keep in mind, none of these devices are perfect. So you got to take everything. Really, the main thing that you're looking for is your club head speed. You want to be able to measure your club head speed. If you can do that, that's really the main thing. And all of these devices do that. The SC200 doesn't. The new SC200, the 200 Plus and the 300 Plus didn't do as well in our testing as a lot of the other devices. But if you already have a 200 Plus, then stick with that, because every device that we measured tells you if you're getting an increase or not. So if you go from 90 to 95, it's going to tell you that you had a 5 mile per hour increase. Now it may tell you that you went from 93 to 98, but it's going to be, the increase is going to be accurate. And that's really what you're after in the long run. So we're not saying we don't recommend the SC200 Plus at all. It's just that if you're looking for an accurate device, the PRGR is the most accurate device that we use. But if you already have a device, then go with that. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's keep moving. All right, so Charles P. says, can you please discuss proper grip pressure and possibly suggest ways to develop it and achieve it? So basically, grip pressure, you need to be putting force into the handle. That's your connection with the club. So I get a lot of people who ask me, who I've heard a lot of instructors and things like that say, like, you want to hold on to the club like it's a baby bird or like it's a tube of toothpaste. You don't want to squeeze out the toothpaste. Now, at address, that could be fine. That could be a perfectly fine way to hold on to the club, remain fairly relaxed. But throughout the swing, that's not going to work. If I were to actually hold the club like a tube of toothpaste, I wasn't trying to squeeze out and swing it as hard as I can, that club would just go flying out of my hand, right? So we need to be putting force into the handle. And really what it comes down to is you want to put enough force into the handle to be able to control it and hold on to it. So what I would be trying to feel like, the most important thing I would say is as you're coming into contact, these first three fingers here. So as I'm coming into contact, I want to be fairly loose as I'm going up to the top. And then as I'm coming down, I really want to be putting some force into the handle as I'm coming down into contact in these first three fingers. So the ring, middle, the pinky, ring, and middle finger. I really want to be pulling on this handle down and whipping that club through with a lot of force. So basically what you want to do is you want to be as little force into the club as you can throughout the swing. Literally, that's not going to be a tube of toothpaste, but as you're bringing that club back, you need to be putting force into that handle. We don't want to be putting a death grip into that handle, but you want to be putting enough force into the handle as you can go up to the top. How you develop that is just through practice. You just you swing clubs and you don't lose control of the club. So if you're losing control of the club, odds are you're not putting enough force into the handle to control it, right? So you need to grip it a little bit harder, right? And then as you go up to the top, that force is going to be greater as you're coming down, right? Because you're adding more force to it. And if you're losing control of it, you need to put more force into the handle. All right. So if you're not losing control of the club throughout the swing and you are able to move around your wrist to be able to get lag and things like that, then putting too much force into the handle, you're not gripping. Feel like basically your fingers are putting the pressure into the grip. The wrists need to be able to move around. So if you're really rigid with your wrist, it's going to be hard to move around. So you can have a firm finger grip, but a loose wrist. That's absolutely. So if you kind of go, you can hold the club like this, put it in your fingers, in your first three fingers, and then just kind of whip around the club. All right. So you can kind of feel that you can get a firm grip, but also move around the grip very easily. This is what we work on in the lag course. So that's basically what it comes down to. I wouldn't overthink the grip pressure. There's no way you can think about throughout the swing that, okay, I have a 2 out of 10 here. As I'm going up to the top, I'm 4 out of 10. I'm 4 out of 10. I'm 6 out of 10. I'm 6 out of 10. Okay, now I'm 10 out of 10 out of 10. You don't have enough time to be thinking about that. You really have to be able to control it. And I need to not put so much pressure into the grip that it can't move. And that's basically what you want to look at. So if you look at your swing and the club, and you're not controlling it, the club's slipping out of your hand, you don't have enough grip pressure. So you need to hold it tighter. And I would be holding it more in these first three fingers here. That's going to be the best place to be putting the most amount of firm pressure. If you look at your swing and you're seeing you're very rigid, your wrists are not moving around at all, you may need to loosen up, especially with your trail hand, loosen up the grip with that trail hand a little bit so that you can get that club to move around. But other than that, I wouldn't really complicate it. I wouldn't really try to think about throughout the swing all these different amounts of grip pressure, because you're just not going to be able to develop that. The easiest way to think about it is put enough into it so that you can control it, but not so much that you can't move at all. All right. And also, if you want to check out a great video on this, I can show you. So if you're not familiar, the website has a great search. You'll find the search window there. So how hard do you grip the club? So these are all how to stop strangling the club. Really good one right here. This one right here, how tight to hold the club in crazy detail. If you're interested in throughout the swing, kind of the pressures and things like that. But basically, Clay's just going to go over exactly what I just talked about. But if you're interested in some videos on grip pressure and things like that, check these out. These are all pretty good, I believe. There's one. I tuck my right elbow against my right side. I rotate my shoulders to position 1 and then lift my arms. Do you see this issue with this? I mean, I wouldn't overcomplicate that backswing. Again, we want to keep things really, really simple. So if you're kind of thinking about it as 2 movements instead of kind of 1 movement that brings you up to the top, I mean, one thing I would say, if you're thinking you're trying to keep your arm to your side and then you're lifting up, that just seems really robotic, and it's not going to be one fluid takeaway. I would just try to get the club, the hands, just try to get the hands up here. I would just be focusing on getting your hands to a place. I think that's the best way to think about it, is to think about getting your hands to a certain place at the top of the swing. Because if you think about your hands getting to that place, to that position, everything's just going to happen automatically to get there. So if you're thinking, okay, I got to keep my arm tucked to my side, and then I'm going to lift my arms that much in the swing, your backswing is not that important. It just sets up the downswing. So you just want to be in a good position at the top that puts you in a good position to come down in the downswing. So I wouldn't overcomplicate it by thinking, okay, I got to tuck my elbow, keep that tucked, and then I'm going to lift my arms, because it's not necessarily going to put you in a great position at the top. I'd be thinking about the position that you're in at the top and trying to get there. Now, if what you're thinking about puts you in that good position at the top, then great. That's fantastic. That's completely fine. Then I would say that it isn't an issue. But if it's not really putting you in a good position at the top, then it's not really useful. It's kind of, it's kind of worthless for the most part. So I'd be thinking the best way I've had work with people to get their hands to a certain point or to get into a good backswing position at the top, is to just think about, where are these hands going? That's where they need to go. They need to get to right here. So how do I get those right there? Now, we don't want to be going up there by doing this. If we're seeing that we're getting up there by doing this, then that can be a power loss, right? So you may need to think, okay, I want to get my hands up to here, but I want to make sure that my hands are going out away from my body. And maybe I need to think about they're going kind of straight up to there instead of kind of looping to there, or instead of like that. So you got to find the right feeling that works for you. But if that gets you to a good backswing position, then great. But if not, then you may want to think about what I'm talking about here, which is just think about getting your hands to a certain position and make sure that you have a nice wide takeaway when you do it, because that's going to make sure that you're getting your shoulders involved. Because if you just kind of lift your hands to get them in the position, you're not really turning your shoulders. So get those hands going out away from your body to get up to the top position where you want to be. All right. So Richard S. says, morning Q. My question today is on the left arm on the backswing. I have it nice and relaxed when I set up to the ball, but as I take it back to the top of the swing, I feel a lot of tension in my shoulder and upper arm, but I bend my elbow a bit. The tension is gone. What would you suggest? You're using folks, when you use your muscles, you're going to have tension in there. It's not going to be completely relaxed. So if you imagine, if I were to lift something up, if I were to just lift it down the ground, now my bicep is soft, but my tricep is firm. There's tension there. So when you're using your muscles, there's going to be tension. So this idea that the golf swing is this tension-free kind of thing is completely bogus. You need to be using your muscles. Otherwise, you're not going to have any power in the swing. So if keeping your lead arm rigid is basically you got to look at the results of the swing. If keeping your lead arm straight is helping you hit the golf ball better, then do that. If not, if you're getting a little bit of bend in your arm, then that's completely fine. Look at Brooks Koepka, bend in the lead arm. Jordan Spieth, Lee Westwood, Angel Cabrera. The list goes on. Jamie Sadlowski. There's tons of guys that have a bend. That's completely fine too. A lot of great ball strikers have bend in their lead arm. My lead arm, I know Clay has a little bit. Rory McIlroy, for example, he keeps that lead arm completely straight. That's completely fine too. That wasn't something. It's not a requirement to be a good ball striker. Now, excessive bend in the lead arm can be an issue because that can cause casting and things like that. And almost always, the reason why I see some bend or excessive bend in the lead arm because of a poor shoulder turn. We need to make sure that we're turning our shoulders. If we turn our shoulders and we have a little bit of bend in that lead arm, then we're good to go. That's completely fine. But if we don't turn our shoulders and we get in this kind of position right here, well, that's the reason why you're bending your lead arm, is because I wouldn't want to be in this kind of position right here. I would feel more natural. Fine. Because, so here's the argument for the bent lead arm versus the straight lead arm. Now, if I have a straight lead arm, I think a lot of reason why the instructors say you want to have a straight lead arm is because it creates a wider arc, right? So a wider arc is going to create more speed, which is true. But a wider arc, if you don't have that bend in the lead arm, your swing is also shorter, right? So if I were to bend my arm like that, my swing is now longer, right? The club now has more space to accelerate the club. So it kind of cancels each other out for the most part. The wider arc gives you a little bit more, it may give you more club head speed, right? But it also, the lengthening of the swing from bending the arm a little bit gives you more club head speed. So those two things basically cancel each other out. Now, whether you're more consistent with a straight lead arm versus a bent lead arm, with a bent lead arm, a slightly bending lead arm, it's more relaxed. You can swing more freely. Maybe you're more consistent that way, right? You don't feel like it's this rigid. You're not using muscles that aren't necessary in the golf swing. It's not necessary to use the muscles that are to keep that. You relax the arm a little bit and use the muscles that you want to be using in the swing. That may help you to hit the ball more consistently. But some people having one less degree of freedom may be more consistent that way. So it's really, I would do what comes naturally to you. Unless you have excessive bend in your lead arm, it's not something that I would worry about at all. I would do what come naturally to you, because honestly, working on it would probably be a total waste of time. It probably would be. You're better off working on the piece of the Top Speed Golf system, which are the things that matter the most. All right. So Mark F says, I'm hitting line drive shots and not getting much height on shot suggestions. It sounds like you're either hitting it thin or you're getting too much forward shaft lean. So my guess is that you're not getting too much forward shaft lean. That's fairly rare. You're probably hitting it thin. So hitting it really low on the face. So I'd be trying to hit it higher on the face. Visualize hitting that ball higher on the face. Try to hit more down and through the ball. See if you can get that strike higher on the face. That's most likely what's happening there. If you want to see where you're striking on the face, I would use something that's called foot powder spray. You just spray it on the club face, and then when you hit it, it'll show you exactly what's going on there. Because what happens when you hit the ball really thin, what happens is the face twists down. So if you hit the ball thin, the face will twist down a little bit. So again, that de-lofts it, and then it'll kind of just be like a line drive going in there. Now, this is especially true with irons, right? So with with wedges, excuse me. If you really hit the ball with the leading edge right here, there's not as much loft right here, and then also you're twisting it down. So this is a 50-degree wedge. If I'm hitting it right there, I'm hitting it with 50 degrees if I don't have any forward shaft lean. Now, if I hit it right there, like really low on the face, there's not as much loft right here on this edge, right? So there's not as much loft there. And then also what's going to happen is it's going to twist down. So it's really going to take a lot of loft off there, and you're going to hit a line drive with it. So that's what may be going on there. I mean, I used to go to the range, and challenge people with my lob wedge and tell them that I bet you I could outdrive them with my lob wedge, and just as a little driving range trick. And then I would just hit a lob wedge. I would hit it like that. I would hit where it basically had zero loft on it, and I would hit the lob wedge like over 200 yards. So that's how you're able to do that with a lob wedge. So that's probably what's going on there, is you're hitting it really low on the face. So get to where you're hitting it higher on the face. Use some foot power spray. See where you're striking it. Get hit kind of down and through the ball. Visualize hitting it high on the face. Stay in the shot. You may be pulling up and flipping. Stay in the shot. Feel like you're staying on top of the golf ball as you're coming through. Get that strike higher on the club face. All right. So Luke F says, working on 3,000 reps for the first part of the stable fluid spine. Proper setup is the focus, but when doing the actual swings, what should I be looking for? Just that I keep my spine tilt throughout. I struggle with getting distracted by lag, etc. But no, that's coming after in the TSG system. So yeah, right now you're just working in the setup. Take it one piece at a time. You can't fix everything at once in the golf swing. You got to take one piece and go out from there. But basically, you're exactly right. With the stable fluid spine course, what we want to do is we want to get slightly angled away at address. So if we look at our overall angle of our body, we want to be, if we draw a line from our shirt buttons away. As we go up to the top of the swing, if we draw lines outside of our trunk here, we want to see that overall angle maintained, and we don't want to see it going way this way or way that way. We want to stay stable. So if you were to draw some lines outside of your torso here, you want to be staying within those lines as you go up to the top. If you're moving way outside those lines, odds are you're kind of sliding or something like that. Or if you're not maintaining those angles. So maybe if I go up to the top and I do a reverse spine angle, or if I go up to the top and I get too far angled away, right, that can cause issues. So yes, you want to be remaining stable around your spine. And then the downswing, what's actually going to happen is you're going to get a little bit of a lateral shift. And then you're going to, as you open up your body, you're actually going to get more angled away as you're coming into contact. And that's level 3 of the stable fluid spine. So just work your way through it. Right now, you're in the setup. Get that setup ingrained to where it's second nature. You don't even have to think about it. You just set up to the ball, and you're automatically in your spine angle every single time. Once you get comfortable with that, then start working on the backswing, getting that spine angle to be correct. That's going to be more in level 2. And then level 3, you'll work through getting that spine angle more angled away. Spine is really, really important. Understand that as you get this better, it's going to be a lot easier to get the lag in the future. So if you're working on this and have a reverse spine angle and all these kinds of things, and you go to work on lag, it's going to be really difficult to get that lag in the swing. You're typically going to really struggle with it. If you get this spine correct, get these spine angles correct throughout the swing, it makes it a lot easier for everything else to fall into place. Makes it a lot easier to get a good shoulder turn, to get that good lag in the swing, to get that good compression line, to get that club to release out in front. So don't make the mistake that I often see a lot of people do, is they kind of get bored with the stable fluid spine, because it's not a real sexy subject. It's not lag, it's not power turn, it's not the release. Those are probably the most sexy ones of all the pieces of the Top Speed Golf system. It's kind of one of the most boring ones on there, between that and probably the compression line. So that piece first. Otherwise, all those more fun ones are going to be more difficult to get into. So stick with it, Luke. It just takes some time. It's Rome wasn't built in a day, right? You got to take the time, put the effort into it. And this is a great time to do that. I know a lot of people getting those reps in, getting more comfortable with those positions. So that way, when you get out to the course, you're already striping the ball. You don't have any rust to shake off or anything like that. ADW said in my clubs, she said it might be causing this. Any thoughts? So I'd say you're probably most likely right. You need to look at your swing on video. So you said these are the key words that I took away from that. I think that I'm coming too much from the inside and sliding forward with my hips. So that tells me that you haven't videoed your swing. You need to video your swing and see what's going on there. You got to see, because swinging from the inside absolutely can get you to hit a shank. Because what's happening here, if I'm And for those of you who aren't familiar, if I'm swinging too much from the inside like this, right? So my club's working inside my hands to outside through contact. So in to out. If that's happening, that can cause shanks, or you may be more likely to shank it because that hosel is working toward the golf ball. If I'm like this, my hosel is just working out toward the golf ball as I'm coming into contact. And then a lot of times, what you're talking about, the hips kind of sliding forward and toward the ball, we get this this kind of motion, right? That kind of motion right there. That's typically going to make that club drop way from the inside if I'm going like that, right? So that's also going to get you swinging too much from the inside. And then my hips moving in that direction like that is moving my handle closer, and that's shank city right there. The swinging too much from the inside, that's most likely what's causing that. You're setting up more angled away does not, directly cause you to slide your hips forward and toward the golf ball and swing from the inside. So here's how you fix a shank ball on the toe. That's the first thing you want to do. Take a little bit of time and effort to make that happen. And even if you try to get it, shanking one every now and then, you're pretty close to a shank probably every single time, and then you do shank a few of them. That's most likely what's going on there. So try to strike the ball on the toe whenever you're got the shanks. That's the first thing that you always want to do. You get a shank, intentionally try to strike all your shots off the toe, because most likely what's going to happen is that's going to move that strike closer to the face. You may hit a couple off the toe, but that's way better than having a shank. I'd much rather have my shots a little off the toe and in the center of the face than off the heel and shank a few of them. So intentionally try to strike the ball on the toe. So line up to the ball the way that you normally would, and try to hit that ball off the toe when you're coming into contact. Because right now you're trying to hit it in the center of the face, but most of your strikes are in the heel or toward the hosel. So you got to adjust your feel to get the desired result that you want. Now, if you're still hitting it in the heel, just exaggerate it even more. Don't think just a little bit off the toe. Get it way out here. Feel like you're hitting a toe shank. Try to feel like you're coming in to the golf ball like that. If this is the golf ball, try to feel like you're coming like that into the golf ball. So that's what I would recommend doing. And if you actually start to hit every shot off the toe, then just ease off of that feeling a little bit. It's just adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. Now, if you look at your swing and you're seeing that your hips are going like that, and this club is swinging away from the inside, then what we need to feel like is that our hip is going that way. So if you imagine you're standing on a clock, right? And this is the camera right here would be 3 o'clock, right? This would be 12 o'clock. This would be 9 o'clock. Back behind me, that'd be 6 o'clock. And this way over here would be 7:30. That's kind of the direction that I'm looking at here. So I want to feel like when I'm coming in, I'm dropping my hip a little bit towards 7:30. So that's that little bit of a lateral shift. Because right now, you're moving your hips what would be toward 10:30, right? You're moving your hips that way. I want you to feel like your hips are moving a little bit toward 7:30. And then once you get some pressure into that lead foot, you're rotating your back hip out of the way. I don't want you to feel like you're rotating your hip, your trail hip like that, because that's going to move you into that position. I want you to feel like your lead hip is moving back out of the way and pushing and getting really, really deep, like you're trying to push it away from the golf ball. That's the feeling that you want to have. And that's going to allow you to create space for that club to work through. It's also going to allow you to rotate so that you don't drop that club away from the inside. Now, if you see that you are swinging and you are rotating open, you're not thrusting your hips toward the ball, but you're seeing this club work from the inside. So you're rotating here, you're just shallowing out the club like you're rotating, but this club's just too shallow and it's working from the inside too much. Then what you need to do is work on, basically feel like you're swinging over the top. So you can do some drills where you go up the top of the swing and then feel like this club is working outside the hands. So it's be like an over the top. This is just a feeling like we're hitting it off the toe. That's not the reality of what you're going to do. You're going to try and get this ball in the center of the face. But just like with that, we're trying to get this club to feel like it's working over the top as we're coming down. The reality is we want to get this club working nicely on plane, but we're going to feel like it's over the top. And if you actually swing over the top, you hit some big old pulls and some slices, then that's good. That means that you've made change, and at that point, you just ease off of that feeling a little bit. So take those, work on those pieces. First of all, number one, try to hit it off the toe. Number two, if you see you're thrusting in the downswing, and get that rotation. And then if you see that club, if you're getting that good rotation, you see that club's working too much from the inside, then you want to feel like you're swinging over the top as you're coming down into the golf ball, and that will get that club more on plane and less likely to hit those shanks. All right. So that was my message there. So Peter B says, hi, Q. I seem to hit my higher irons and wedges, pulling them to the left as a right-hander. However, I hit my lower irons reasonably straight. What would explain this? How do I straighten out my 8 through wedges? Thanks. So some people sometimes do different things based on the club. Typically, most people are doing the same thing from club to club, but clubs way different. Clubs are different lengths. There might be a different visualization in your mind that's making you do different things. But the fact of the matter is if you're pulling certain clubs, then you need to basically adjust your feel to get the desired result that you want. So if you're pulling a club, let's go over what causes a pull. So basically what it comes down to, just to go back to that, I don't know of any particular reason why you would swing certain clubs way different than other clubs, other than they're different lengths, different weights. There might be a different visualization. Maybe there's something that you're trying to do that's different. Maybe you're trying to hit down on those shots a little bit more and up on certain shots, and that gets you to swing in a certain direction. But the fact of the matter is that the shots that you're pulling, you are swinging over the top, right? Over the top like this. So your path is moving out to in, and your face is square to that path, but close to the target. Because when you hit a shot and there's no curvature on it, if you hit it solid, then that means that your face and your path are in the same direction. So what I'm talking about is the direction the face is pointing and the direction the club head is moving through contact. So if you're over the top and if you're pulling to the left, right? Well, we fix that by thinking the opposite. We exaggerate the opposite. What would be the opposite of swinging over the top? That would be swinging from the inside. So I'd be thinking about with those 8 irons, or with the 8 iron through wedges or whatever it might be that you're pulling, I'd feel like you're swinging, trying to hit a big old block push out to the right. That's what I'd be trying to do with all of those clubs. Try to hit a big old block push out to the right. That's going to help you do that. And also, you may want to move the ball maybe too far forward in your stance. Because when the ball is too far forward in your stance, if that ball isn't back of the middle of your stance, you can move that ball more to the middle of your stance, and that's going to help you to swing on the inside and get that ball starting more to the right. So look at your ball position. Make sure that, I would say, with the wedges and the 8 iron through 8 iron, it can be in the middle to a little bit ahead of the middle of your stance. If you're more ahead of that, then that could be part of the issue. And then feel like you're hitting a big old block out to the right. Get some to where you block them just straight out to the right. And then once you get that happening, then all you have to do is ease off of that to find those straight shots. But like I said, I don't know if there's any it's kind of interesting. I don't know if it was you that asked the question. I've gotten this question all 3 office hours this week, where somebody's doing something much different with they're hitting all their clubs great, except there's like 4 clubs that they pull or something like that. Like I said, I don't know of any particular, might be something I may want to look into, but other than the fact that clubs are longer, shorter, there's a different mindset, whatever it might be. Maybe you're changing your ball position with these clubs because it's not necessary. Because I find that's what a lot of people do, because they feel like there's got to be a different ball placement for every single club. Like all your upper irons need to be up in your stance, and you can slightly. I'll show you what I do here in a second, but you really only need 2 ball placements. One is for shots that are hit off the turf. That would be 1 ball ahead of the middle of your stance is basically where that is. If I have my good spine angle here, straight down from my lead ear, that's slightly ahead of the middle of my stance. That's about where I play. That's pretty close to where I play everything that I hit off the ground. And then for your driver, it's just basically straight down from your lead shoulder. that's where you want, because that's going to allow that club to bottom out and then work up into the golf ball. So straight down from the lead shoulder is going to be a good ball placement for the driver. You can use those two ball placements right there for every single club that you're hitting off the turf. If I'm hitting my driver off the turf, I'm doing it the same way. So, but the driver, I'm hitting it up off of a tee, so I play it more forward in my stance, so the club can bottom out and then work into the golf ball and and that allows me to get high launch, low spin for more distance. Now, if you can make it a little right. So I talked about one ball forward of the middle of your stance. Wedges I play more in the middle of my stance. The reason why I do that is because it helps me hit more down on the golf ball, which gives you a little bit more spin. And it also helps me to hit the ball lower, because typically with wedges, you want a lower ball flight with more spin. And playing it a ball, because that's a little bit easier to do with a wedge as well. So that's why I do that with my wedges. Now, with my upper iron, so like a 4-iron and my hybrid and my 3-wood, I'll play that a ball forward of where I normally would. And that just helps me to hit the ball a little bit more shallow. Typically, a ball forward in your stance helps with that. I see too many people playing their 3-wood off the turf in the same position that they do with their driver. They see the wood, right? They see that wood in their hands, just like with the driver, and they play it in the same place. And they top and they thin at almost every single one of them. So, or they'll really slide forward to get to it. So I recommend just a little bit forward in the stance of where you normally would with those clubs, or you can play it in the same spot off the turf every single time. And the driver is the same place. So you can go with the 2-ball position method that is really super simple, kind of a minimalistic kind of one, or you can do with the 4 ball position method. That's going to give you you're going to be able to play fantastic golf with all of that. Do not overcomplicate it. I think a lot of people just saw the Ben Hogan's book where he's opening and closing his stance with every single one. He's moving with every single club, and he's moving the ball forward and back based on the club. That's just way too overcomplicating it. 99% of us do not need to be thinking about it in that sense. Now, a tour player who's out there, they do this for their living, and they can really fine tune it and get these things down. Maybe that's what they do, right? But for the 99.9% of the rest of us, right, we need more simplification so that we can focus on the things that we really need to work on to improve our game. So that's what I recommend for sure. All right. So Richard S. says, Q, on the overlap grip, how does the index finger and the baby finger join together? Is the index finger off of the grip? All right. So overlap grip, otherwise have for a while. I started out with the interlock and then went to the Varden grip for some reason, just decided to one day and did that for a while. And then when I've gone back to the interlock. But anyway, yes. So your pinky can go in. I think this is the most comfortable way. Everyone's hands go together a little bit differently. So this may not become on your middle finger, I don't know, or on your or on top of your finger like that. Any of them are fine. But I feel like you get a little bit more of a continuity if you put it right in between, be on the grip, right? It's going to be laying on a lot of distance variability. You're probably just either not hitting it in the center of the face. You're probably hitting it thin, maybe sometimes, or chunking it sometimes. It's probably just you're coming in, just not making same amount of shaft lean, and I assume you're probably using the same ball position every single time, anywhere position. Some variance in there because it's a little bit harder to make solid contact from those positions, because if you have the ball too far forward, what are you going to do? You're either going to slide forward to get to the golf ball, or you're going to let that club bottom out before the ball, and you're going to chunk it or hit it thin. There's going to be a huge variance between those shots, right? And then if the ball's too far back in my stance, I'm going to be chopping down into the golf ball. I have to time this club coming down with where the club is, whereas I'm going to top it or I'm going to chunk it, right? Again, huge variances between those. So make sure your ball position can play a difference there. So I would look at that. Shaft lean's probably doing the same. It's not going to magically. You're not going to swing the club the same way, or kind of have the same movement pattern and some swings have this much forward shaft lean, and some swings have no forward shaft face at the same time. So that's basically my trail wrist is doing this movement. So it's twisting back that way to shallow out the club, and my wrist is going into extension. So it's that motion. So that's shallowing and squaring of the face. So if you go here, if I go to steep to cupped to shallow to wrist extension, or sorry, this would be cupped right here. So bowed and steep to extension and shallow, right? That's the feeling that I'm going to have. It's that right there. And then with the lead wrist, if I go from cupped and steep, right, to bowed and shallow, that's the position that you're going in. So a lot of times you want to have that wrist nice and flat, so that way you don't have to do a ton of that as you're coming down. If you're really, if my trail wrist is kind of flat or even a little bit bowed at the top, if I'm in that kind of position and my club is coming down steep, I'm really going to have to do a lot to get that club to shallow out. That's a lot to ask. So what I'd recommend doing is having this club on a pretty good plane here at the top, have a nice flat lead wrist, bent back trail wrist. So that way, as you come down, it's a lot easier. You don't have as much to do. You can just shallow out the club a little bit and then square it a little bit. And that's going to be the move course. It's not an easy thing to do. If you're used to the flip and roll kind of swing, it's not an easy thing to do. It just takes time. And I'd recommend working through the tennis racket drill in the move course to get that much better. To get to the move course, I can actually show you. The tennis racket drills in the move course. So up the top here, we go to the instruction tab and then go to Top Speed Golf System. And then if we scroll all the pieces here and we can see the move right here, we'll click on that and I can show you the course here. All right. So if I lesson tree and you can see all the lessons, you can also scroll down here and you can click expand all, and that will do the same thing. You can see all the lessons in here. You can see which ones you completed and all that good stuff. So if you look over here, the tennis racket drill 1.3, that's the one that you really want to work on to get that club shallowing out and that handle turning. It's one movement. We just break it into two movements so you can understand what we're trying to do. But you want to think about it as, if you think about it as you're doing one thing and it's just that motion, it becomes a lot easier. If you think about it, okay, I have to do this and then I've got to do that, you feel like you have to do two things at once, when in the reality, you're just doing that. It's just one thing that we put together. You can break everything into pieces. You can say that your trail arm is internally rotating and your wrist is got inward rotation, and then your trail wrist has got outward. You can break it into a million different parts and make it super complicated. But if you just think about the one movement that has to happen, and that's the shallowing, and the really one thing, but we can break it into components so that you understand exactly what the body needs to do to make it happen. So Dennis G says, how do you have difficulty getting my hands lower at impact? Is this caused by stopping the arms from moving forward through impact? Most likely it's because you're releasing the club early. If you release the club early, if I come in and I'm flipping this club, I'm coming in like that, I can't get my hands low. Otherwise, if I get my hands low and I flip, look what happens to the club. It's just hitting the ground back here, 2 feet behind the ball. I know you can't see that, but you can hear that hitting my carpet here to make room for the club. So that's most likely what's going on there. So you probably need to work on the move, right? We just talked about that, and the straight line release. I'd say a great drill to help you get that proper feeling of the hands going low is the pet the grass drill. And let me show you where you can find that. So on the pet the grass drill, what we're doing in this drill, so I'm going to go back to my instruction tab here. And all I'm doing when I go to the instruction tab is I'm hovering my mouse over it. I'm not clicking it. I'm hovering my mouse over it. And then I'm going to Top Speed Golf System. And now I'm going to scroll down to where I can see all the courses on the website. The straight line release course is where that pet the grass drill is. You can also search pet the grass in the search engine to find it on the website. Very, very easy to find. So I think the pet the grass drill is in level 2. I could be wrong. It's level 3. Oh, maybe it's level 1. I guess I was wrong. There it is. So 1.4 from the straight grass here. So you can see if I have my club coming down, and I'm going to put the club, I'm going to do that same thing. I'm getting down really, really low with the hands. You got to break things down, go really, really slow with it. If we look at the thumbnail of the video, you can see exactly what I'm talking about there. So you got to get those hands really low. Feel like you're petting the grass as you're coming through contact, and that can help you work on that straight line release, work on the move course. These are all drills that are going to help you to get more forward shaft lean and compression on the ball. Right. So Luke F says, these sessions are great. Thank you. Quick putter question. Recommended grip. I interlock on full swings, but don't know if that makes sense for putting. Yeah, you can use a very similar grip you do with your normal kind of our fingers kind of spread out on there. Now, we don't want it completely in the fingers because then we're not going to have very good control of the club. We're going to end up with a long thumb here. So we want it a little bit in the fingers, and we want to have more of a short thumb. That gives me good control, and now I'm going to be able to hinge the club properly. So, but with a putter, we want to move that more in the palm of my hand, more in the lifeline of my hand. If I were to squeeze my hand together like that, you can see there's a crease, there's some lines in my hand there, and I want that club right in there. And that way, it lines the club up with my forearms. So I can do an interlock grip with that same way. I just want to have it in my lifeline of my hand, kind of going through my forearm there. That's going to allow me, I can use my interlock grip just like that if you want to. Now, your standard putting grip, if I grab a putter here, there we go. Our standard putting grip, this is how I putt. This is how I grip it, because for me, it can be a little bit uncomfortable to kind of have that in the lifeline of my hand. So if you kind of look at it like that, if I have it in the lifeline of my hand, and I'm doing an interlock, to me, it's just it feels like there's a lot of holes in there. Well, your hands may be different. So instead of going like that, I'll take my hand and I'll put it more, my finger straight down like that. That makes it, and then I'll kind of overlap these. So I'm overlapping my pinky between my ring and middle finger there. I'll do that. And then I'll have my the finger of my lead hand kind of going down the shaft. And that gets everything nice and lined up just like that. So everything's all together just like that. But there's a million ways to grip the putter. Really the main thing is just having the putter lined up with your forearms here. So I have the putter lined up with my forearm more in the lifeline of my hand. So one thing you can do is you can do exactly this. You can kind of hold it like this and kind of just hold it, hold it naturally. That's going to put it naturally in if you have it lined up with your forearm, that's going to put it naturally in the lifeline of your hand. And now I can just slide this putter down, right? And that's going to be the kind of the hand position that I want to have this in. Same thing with my lead hand, right? I can have it going up my forearm, and I can just slide this down, and that's where I want to have it. Now I can put my hands together, and you can use an interlock like that. You can use an overlap. You can do what I do, and I kind of put my finger down the shaft and interlock my pinky between my middle and my ring finger, and that's what feels most comfortable for me. You can use what's called a claw grip, which is where you have it like that. You can use two-hand where there's no interlock. You can just have it like that, kind of like a baseball kind of grip a little bit. There's really no wrong way to do it as long as what feels most comfortable for you. The main thing there, I have a driver in here, but let's pretend that this is a driver face. Now, the middle of the face, that's going to be pretty darn good. But what you can do is if you hit it a little bit higher on the face, so like a 1/4 inch higher, and then a little bit more toward the toe, like a 1/4 inch toward the toe, you can get a little bit more out of it. And the reasoning is that the toe of the club is moving a little bit faster than the center of the face, and the heel is actually moving slower. So if you imagine if you're swinging your driver 100 miles per hour. That's from the center of the club face, the geometric center of the club head, actually. So the edge of the toe of the club could be moving about 7 miles per hour, and the heel of the club, the edge of the heel, could be moving about 93 miles per hour. So that's a big difference, right? 107 versus 100 miles per hour. For every mile per hour, you're basically looking at 2.6 yards, 2.7 yards, something like that. But we don't want to hit it way out here on the toe of the club, because what's going to end up happening is that the face will twist. The other thing is going to top spin forehand in tennis, right? That's kind of the feeling. Transfer as much energy into the golf ball. So if you get too far out on the toe, the face will twist too much. You won't get as much. So just a little bit, like a quarter of an inch. And then a little bit, that's going to give you a little bit more speed. And then if you hit a little bit higher on the face will twist a little bit upward, which is going to make it launch high. And it's going to lower the spin a little bit, because if you imagine the ball kind of going down the face a little bit. So that's high launch, low spin. Now, you don't want to go too high on the face, because then the face is going to twist too much. It's going to go too high, and it's also not going to transfer as much energy to the golf ball. And it's not going to, a lot of times it won't gear it either. You'll just add so much loft, go a little bit further. But if you hit it low and on the heel, you're going to tend to lose distance, right? Because that's going to be more spin, it's going to be lower launch, and it's going to be less speed. So that's the worst place to be able to hit, low and in the heel. So if you're really good at controlling your club face, you may be able to think, okay, I want to hit a little high toe. You may be able to do that, but most people aren't in that category. Most people are lucky to hit the center of the face. So go for the center of the face. If you hit it a little bit on the toe, a little bit higher on the face, bonus, right? Bonus points. All right, so I'll take a couple more here. I got in here a little bit late, so we're going to be using this software after this week. I'm going to give it the rest of the week. So I do apologize that it is buffering. It makes my computer really slow, so my computer just isn't powerful enough to use it. So I do apologize for that. It's just something we're trying out, growing pains. But thanks everybody for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, and that'll be tomorrow is Thursday, so 3 p.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you all next time.